everybody. Welcome to the InPsight Show. This is your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall too everywhere. How are you guys? Happy March. Man, we're plugging into March, and man, is it a March. We are marching into March. We've had unseasonably warm weather up here in Montana. I'm not complaining about it, though. I mean, I've really been enjoying the sunshine. It's been warm and lovely, and it's going to plummet to some pretty freezing temperatures before it's all said and done. However, right now, it's gorgeous. So I've been loving getting some vitamin D in my brain. And you guys, I've been grounding. I've been sitting out in my backyard in my lawn chair with my bare feet on the ground and just letting the earth absorb all of the juju out of my body. And man, has that made a difference. And it's been really cold. Now, I shouldn't say really cold. It's been like, 40 and 50 in Montana, which is not really cold for us. But you don't really want to sit out there in your bare feet. Do you know what I mean? When the weather's like that. So anyway, I hope y'all get some grounding done because it literally is making me feel like a new human being. And all I'm doing is sitting in a lawn chair with my bare feet on the grass. Actually, it's brown grass. It's dead grass. It doesn't even matter. It just feels so good, you guys. It is feeling so good. So anyway, I wanted to just jump right in on this March topic because I'm so super excited about it. I'm excited about all our topics every time. And I've been going through some road angel footage, and I've been doing that since February. Actually, I'm cataloging the footage just because we shot so much for this TV pilot. And we did an edit of the show that was actually turned into the state of Montana to complete the grant that we got. Yet, we're kind of in the process of forming up however we'd want the pilot to go. And I had somebody ask me the other day, they were like, oh my God, you're still working on that. And I said, it's a television show. I mean, you don't just whip a TV show together and then walk up to a network or walk up to a production company and say, hi, will you give us like $8 million to produce a season of this show? Thanks. Or $3 million or $2 million for a season of this show? Thanks. It's just not how it goes. You got to really state your case. And so in going through all of this footage, man, we caught some incredible stuff. And, I don't want to do any spoilers because we've got all kinds of plans for where this could or couldn't land and all the things. But the point is, I've been working on cataloging all of this. And one of the things that I came across in just rewatching all of this footage, hundreds, zillions, gillions, millions of hours of footage that we shot, was how on top of information that these angels are. And it's one of the reasons why I started the Rocky Mountain Academy of Energetic Arts is because all of us, you guys, all of us are big electromagnetic semiconductors, and we all pull this information in, every single one of us. And I understand that, there's folks like me who maybe have a little bit more experience in this area than others in dealing with angels and translating off-worlder messages and, the energies and all the things. However, guys, we all have this ability. We're all psychic. We just don't want to be psychic half the time because it's a lot of effort. Right now, in fact, I'm right in the middle of teaching a class at RMAEA, and at the academy, the class that I'm teaching is the empathic gifts class. Just being cool with your empathic gifts. Because honestly, a lot of people aren't. And I was going back over this footage and just cataloging different quotes and angles and all these things. And I'm looking at myself translating spirit information for people in this first episode we were putting together. And one of the things I was the most struck by is right about the time that I was receiving messages from the angels for people. I watched, the people that were listening to me receive their message. Like sometimes they would shift, or sometimes they would sit back, or sometimes if you really zoomed in on their pupils would just tick open a little bit. And the point of that is that everybody that I was reading for was also feeling this energy. It's a palpable energy that people can feel when the angels are bringing this through. And I really think that there's been so much disempowerment of human beings when it comes to our spirit gifts and talents. And that's one of the reasons I started the academy. I was sick of that, man. Not only did I want to make my own Hogwarts, because, I mean, like, who doesn't want to do that? That's, like, so cool. But at the same time, I really want people to understand how powerful we all are. And the last class we had in my empath class was the 12th of March, and it's rolling through till the end of this month. But the last class that I had, we had a number of people on Zoom, and I'm doing them on Zoom so folks all over the world can be part of it, right? And so here's me on Zoom doing all this, and this group of people from Canada to California to all over the United States is feeling the energies that are so tremendous coming through the Zoom. I mean, everybody's getting goosebumps, and I mean, it was really quite profound. And one of the things that I thought about was, man, we have been so remarkably disempowered and cut off from our spirit gifts and talents that people are just being bred. And I mean, this is going to sound a little, George Orwell here, but just bear with me on this one. People are just getting bred into these corrals of fear right now. And it is freaking disturbing. I mean, my last podcast that I recorded on my birthday, I was talking about how fear so profoundly affects humanity and our little Gen Zs that are so connected on the internet, how they're getting hammered by it just all the time. And other generations that aren't as internet dependent are still getting hammered by it. Maybe not to the shutdown degree of other generations that are always getting hit with notifications. But still, we got all the Fox News people freaking out and the Newsmax people. It's not even hardly Fox News anymore, although Fox News is still, they cater to their audience just like MSNBC or anybody else. But man, there's places like Newsmax that are complete and total bizarro fan fiction blogs that get, post the most outrageous stuff, and people are getting really frightened by the content on it. And it's just not even a news site, but people believe it because it's, it's on the internet and all the things. So it got me to thinking about why we refuse to interface with our greatest gifts and talents. And I'm going to keep pushing these classes at the Academy. I mean, we've got Rachel Seaford up there at the Academy right now, and she's got a class coming up all about divination, practical divination, and how to use tuning forks in your energy field to get out there and really check on your own wellness. We've got instructor Melissa Siana up there with a class about how to identify all the plants in your own backyard that are healing and energetically enlightening and lifting. We've been so cut off from all of this information. And I'm still in my empath class, but the next class I'm going to be doing is off-worlder education and identification, because I just think that sounds super fun. But at the same time, I'm looking around thinking, man, it is so hard to actually be honest with human beings about how awesome and powerful we are. It is so hard. It is so hard to ask people to give up their fear in 2024. I've never seen anything like it, you guys. So, all right, so as an example, okay? Here we are. I've got beautiful clients from all over this beautiful planet. And a lot of the clients in the United States are calling up about big transitions in their life. Like how they want a new job. Maybe their job phased out and they don't have any more retirement, so they're going to move to Mexico or whatever it is. Whatever. And at this time frame, I have never before in the 20 some odd years of this job that I've done it, had a harder time translating for these angels and trying to convince everybody that we actually are as powerful as we are as a species. And people are like, well, if that's true, I just don't see how that's true. I mean, we've got Trump and he's running for president and again, and you guys, of course he was going to run for president again. That's what Donald Trump does. Are we all surprised by that? Come on, everybody. So, I mean, and then people who are just crippled with fear because Trump's running for president. People who are crippled with fear because they honestly believe that old Joe Biden, God bless you, old Joe, man, Joe Biden, I swear to God, I always think of Joe Biden. And in all fairness and transparency, I'm a Biden voter. I'm going to vote for Joe Biden, okay? However, I always imagine him in the morning sitting up on the side of the bed and somebody coming over and sticking a crank in his back and just cranking him up. It's like, come on, Joe, you can do it. And he's like, okay, let's get out there and do this thing again. This poor guy, God. But I mean, you got somebody who's 80 or 81, and I mean, that's Biden. And then you got Trump, who's 77, or he's going to be 78, I think. I mean, these are older people that are running for president, and one's like just a handful of years younger, making fun of the other one. And I'm thinking, the fear that's going around. So, fear, you guys, fear is the ultimate crippling tool. And let me explain something to everybody here. We haven't changed as a species, except for the fact that we keep evolving so that our spiritual gifts and talents are getting stronger and stronger and more amazing. And we are birthing millennials, and we are birthing, the indigos, we're the boomers and Gen X, and then we've got the millennials and Gen Z, and we've got the rainbow kids, and we have all these kids coming in who are so spiritually powerful and psychic and so intuitive. Yet the model of the world they're getting is everybody just collapsing in fear online and being hysterical about all kinds of things. That these very powerful generations, and we're all powerful. The boomers are powerful. X is powerful. Millennials, Y and Z, we're all powerful, and we all have a different purpose, you guys, okay? So I'm looking around, and I am flabbergasted by how crippled, and I do mean crippled, like just crippled down, like we're crumpling in a pile. We can't move, we can't walk, we can't turn our head. We're just in a pile of collapsed being under fear in the United States. You guys, I mean, y'all are making it, I'm not you guys per se, I'm just seeing the universal all is making it difficult to try and counter the narrative of, oh, it's all done and we're all sunk and it's all crap. I mean, it's like we want to believe this collectively for some reason. And I've been asking the angel that walks with the world, why the hell are we going in this direction? I mean, do people just not know how extraordinary we are? I mean, we band together. We can do anything with our psychic and spiritual and emotional and psychological gifts and talents. We can do anything. But you know what we're busy doing? Good Lord. Good Lord, look at the right, okay? There's this thing called Project 2025. And God, and honestly, I mean, it's so horrific. It just makes me laugh because it's so terrible. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It is so the things that dystopian novels in 1910 and 1920 were written about. And it's put out by the Heritage Foundation. Of course, the Heritage Foundation is a group of human beings that consider themselves conservative, but I don't even think of them as conservatives. I think of them as religious radicals, because I know lots of people that are conservatives that could care less who marries who and who has an abortion and just don't tax them too much. I mean, there's a difference between being fiscally conservative in this nation and, I mean, even just a touch socially conservative. I'm not talking anti-LGBTQ. I'm talking, hey, let's abide by the laws and let's not, go crazy as a society. There's a difference between that conservatism and this authoritarian religious hierarchy that's throwing down right now. And I think we need to distinguish between the two, because the authoritarian religious hierarchy that threw down, as I've talked about for years, has made its home in the Republican Party. And you guys, I know lots of normal Republicans, and honest to God, their deal is just don't tax me too much and don't tell me what to do with my gun. Now, they and I are going to disagree on a few gun laws, but they're not going to disagree that I have a right to marry my wife. I'm not going to disagree with the fact that they have a right to carry a firearm, So this religious hierarchy, you guys, is so insane because in this 2025 manifesto that the Heritage Foundation put out, it really makes The Handmaid's Tale look passé. And they go on and on about how pretty much there should be nothing but God And anyone else who doesn't believe in their version of Christian God gets suppressed, silenced, LGBTQ stuff out the window, women's rights out the window. I mean, it is full tilt, just Christian white, like every horror movie you could possibly imagine, right? And as many of you know, Viktor Orban, right? He is the complete, scary, authoritarian Hungarian prime minister who has outlawed everything, every right everybody has except for Christian male rights in Hungary. He visited Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And then it's interesting, this Viktor Orban guy went and met with the head of the Heritage Foundation that put out Project 2025. And, it's this whole like weird guys club that is trying to turn back time to like the 1700s. It's really interesting. And the thing that's so interesting about this is that people read about this stuff and, the Project 2025, which is like 500 pages or something utterly ridiculous of this manifesto of how once, Trump owns the Supreme Court and once Trump gets into office, then Trump is going to outlaw everything and basically become Hitler. I mean, it literally says how people are going to get, property taken away and all these things and blah. This is their idea of equality. And it's so fascinating because I do not understand the drive that Project 2025 authors have to turn back time. I mean, it's so freaking impossible to do that, regardless if you have like the Supreme Court in your pocket, which isn't a thing, by the way. But I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, my God, these people are absolutely delusional. They are the American Taliban. They are just working to religiously oppress everybody by installing, judges and policemen and presidents and all these things. So now this makes a lot of people feel very afraid, okay? Because technically speaking, could these wackadoodles fill up every single law implementing, I guess, body in the United States with extremist weirdos? Could they take over voting? Could they shove people? Well, sure they could. They could. But guys, we have a country of people that are never going to go for it. So, it's one thing to say you're in power. It's the next thing to say I'm going to try to execute that power. It's another thing to make people execute the power that you're telling them to execute, like go round up all the LGBTQ people, or go take the property away of that non-Christian, or go, round up, they're talking about rounding up all these people who look like they may be illegals into camps in Project 2025. I mean, it is the most ridiculous, horrendous, oh my goodness, did you borrow this from old Adolf? I mean, it is sad. So here's old Viktor Orban, and he's up here parading around, meeting with Trump and meeting with the Heritage Foundation, and he's not meeting with anybody from our State Department because it's all these wacko little cultists that he's meeting with, okay? So what I think is so fascinating about this is I've been seeing pass-arounds on the internet of mentions of Project 2025. And, the fact of the matter is Trump is going to end up, unless he's going to end up the nominee, and I look ahead, we are going to have some tussling in the Republican convention about making him the nominee, but it looks like he comes out on top. But boy, it does look like get your popcorn from the Republican National Convention is going to be quite a tussle. But he looks like he makes it through by a squeak right now. And people are passing around this Project 2025, and it's actually almost 1,000 pages. I was saying 500, but that doesn't even, it's almost 1,000 pages of, their idea of restoring family and protecting children, which basically is just taking rights away from every other person on the earth. So the interesting thing is Project 2025 also talks about taking over media, taking over the courts, taking over everything, just like authoritative dictators do. So it is a hoot to me that the people who are authoring Project 2025 have lived in their bubbles for such a long time that they actually believe that people will just, even if they did put all these people in all of these places, and I'm just not seeing that be a thing in the future psychically, they would literally have to take over voting. They would have to take over absolutely everything. And I do not see that happening in the United States. They don't have enough backing. They don't have enough power. And quite frankly, you guys, you got to remember some of the biggest billionaires on the planet live in the United States of America, and they don't want us taken over because there'll be a mass exodus of people out of this country. And, there goes the value of the dollar. If we are taking over by authoritarians, is going to plummet. So you can always count on good old greed on the United States of America soils to keep the authoritarians out. However, we're talking about psychic gifts. And when we have this mass hysteria going around, and you should be very aware of this Project 2025 manifesto. And you should be very aware, especially if you're a conservative person, that there is a religious authoritarian group that is very interested in overthrowing democracy in order to plug in their version of one-person rule. So that's not actually democracy, which challenges a lot of my constitutionalist conservative friends' belief system. So if you are a conservative listener, or you do have conservative friends, please let them know that Project 2025 is not a conservative manifesto. It's an anti-constitutional manifesto, which is super interesting at almost 1,000 pages, railing and railing and railing like a Bible, like they're trying to create a new Bible is what they're trying to do, about how we need to turn back time and basically disempower the United States from everything it's built on and make it a dictatorship. With kind of a mock court and a mock Congress and a mock law system and all these things. So make sure that your conservative friends are aware of that. If they read it for themselves, they can read in there, and it's a little crazy. Unless your friends are real authoritarian, extremist, cultist, Christian, religious people, probably most conservatives I've talked to this about are like, what the F is that? I'm like, yeah, this isn't conservatism, you guys. This is anti-American. This is anti-democracy. This is creating a dictator, like an Adolf Hitler or a king is what it is. It's a Putin thing. So, as we are all psychic and we are all spiritual, we're passing around this fear around this Project 2025, a lot of us, especially on the left, and it's crippling up people. It's ceasing forward movement in people's mindsets. And I would really caution everybody about the difference between educating people energetically about, what's going on in the world and just creating a fear bomb. Because as long as we get out and vote, guys, we're going to be okay. As long as our young people register to vote, we're going to be okay. Right now, we have far more non-hyper hysterical, religious, culty, authoritarian people in this country. There's far more just regular, I want to live my life people out there. And if we don't get out and cast a vote, it makes it easier for the wackadoodles to wiggle the numbers through the same mechanisms that we watched wiggle the numbers through the 2016 election. So, what's so fascinating here is that we are all such conductors of thought process. And we do have a lesson here in applying ourselves to the world. Because if we don't apply ourselves to the world and we just sit there and hope it's all going to get better, we are missing the point of having a body. That's why we have these bodies. So there's a balance to be done, you guys, about being aware of, say, Project 2025 and Viktor Orban visiting Trump in Mar-a-Lago and going to visit the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. and doing all the things he did. And, of course, Viktor and Putin and Trump, they all believe in the one iron fist rule where one man has all the power. And I do say man because they don't want the women having the power. Those type of men do not want women having power. You know why? Because we'll get in there and we'll be like, sit the hell down. Just sit your braggadocio ass down while we fix everything. Go have a beer with your friends, talk about your glory days, talk about how you're going to cover up your bald spot, lie about your erectile dysfunction. Sit down while we figure this out, please. They don't want anybody doing that because it takes the power away and it takes the money away and all these things. So this is all going on in real life world right now. What's also going on is that we have these generations of people coming in and older generations who have been working with their spiritual gifts and talents for a long time, which means that the light army, if you want to call it that, the light army is getting huge on the planet Earth. And this is why this little narrow, no, I'm going to keep power no matter what, little movement amongst, I'm holding up my pinky right now, pinky, these little pinkied, wink, wink, nod, nod dudes out there trying to wrangle the world together. They're working so hard, just like the Wizard of Oz at the end when old Toto ran up and started tearing the curtain off and the wizard was exposed, right? And there's this big projection of the Wizard of Oz, this big spooky projection, and this weird little guy behind the curtain. Do not pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. Well, I'm going to pay a lot of attention to the man behind the curtain. I'm going to be Toto. Bark, 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 bark. Let me just take this curtain and run it to the left here. Or to the right. That was not a political statement. Thank you very much. And open up. And so we can see what's going on here. And we can have a clear shot at it. Gang, there are far more people who want a beautiful, kind world where we're just hanging in there with laws and with respect for one another and with being a good neighbor and with not abusing our planet, where everybody has a shot at education and everybody has a shot at trades and everybody has a shot at just being what they are. There are far more people in the United States of America that want this world than these wacko fringies that are saying you have to do exactly what I want you to do. And I got to tell you, I know a lot, like I said, I know a lot of conservative Republicans who think that these fringe evangelical authoritarians are insane and they don't want anything to do with them. And they're a little pissed that they've started using their conservative vocabulary like patriotism and American freedom. And they're like, these guys don't want freedom. They want to enslave everybody. They want to take my land because I don't go to church enough. Yeah. So when we are evaluating how powerful we are as a species, guys, we've got to get our fear under control. And, guys, again, this is my little bark, bark, bark Toto factor here, pulling the curtain back. We are really enabling fear all over the place. We're enabling it in younger generations. We're enabling it with each other. We're enabling it with the elderly. We are just it's like our big high that we're on in the United States right now. Oh my God. What if Biden takes over again and we're a socialist country? Or, oh my God, what if Trump gets in again and we all get our rights stripped? And, guys, fear is a drug. It's a freaking drug. It jacks up your brain chemistry like you can't believe. It throws us all into a false sense of purpose. Like, oh, I'm afraid I got to get out there and rally. Okay, fine. But what are you going to do after you rally, man? What are you going to do after that? And I'm not saying don't get out there and work for a good United States or a great United States that you truly believe in. But if you're working for anything, I don't care if you are a hyper lefty or a hyper righty. Okay, if you are working for anything that shuts down the voice of another or marginalizes others so that you can be elevated or victimizes others so that you can stay ahead, or being so heinously disrespectful and threatening that it causes fear in people, these are all party fouls with a collected, a bio unit known as humanity. It's party fouls in the collective. We are going through experiments in being afraid. and hunkering into our own little corners. But let me tell you why this fear thing is catching on so hard right now. First of all, it's a lot of post-traumatic stress for the absolute crap show that erupted in the country after Trump was sworn in 2017. There's a lot of trauma that we just have not discussed in this country all over the place. And there was trauma from the Trump supporters and that they're not talking about, having family members never talk to them again. I mean, there's trauma all across the board from LGBTQ or trans people who were getting beat up and killed because all of these hyper righties were emboldened by Trump's garbage, his singular garbage that he spouts. And I mean, honestly, the guy is broken, you guys. He's a broken human being. He's been broken forever. And he's, at this point, just kind of a rambling sociopath who just goes off about whatever he needs at that moment. He's so detached from everything. He's just a broken person. So to sit here and be in so much fear of that broken person or that person's followers is a little weird. You know, it's just like these people who are so terrified of Biden. I mean, you guys, he's old. He's an old dude. Okay, so his memory's a little shakeola. He's surrounded by a team of people that are at least working for democracy and keeping the bubble between the lines. They're not working to tear down everybody's rights. And if you try to tell a deep Trump supporter that, they're going to argue with you. They will say, no, they're taking away my rights. They want to give all of my rights to trans people. My daughter is going to be kicked out of her girls' school because it's going to be filled up with trans kids. I mean, this is the fearful garbage they believe over on that super side, you know, the autonomous they, right? Way out there in wherever land that is. So, I mean, we've got people who believe that Biden is the end. We've got people that believe that Trump is the end. And we are hyper-focusing on human beings in the United States because it's easier to do that than to really look at the fact that we ourselves are the reason that the economy has gone crazy because we keep buying crap made in China that's been marked up 50 million% on credit cards when we have no money. We are driving the economy up. We keep buying even though the prices keep raising. We keep buying, you guys. That's not Trump or Biden. That's us. But we don't want to look at that. So let's look at Trump and Biden. Other stuff that we should be looking at in our own backyard. I mean, what are our spending habits? How many of us just spend and spend? I know I go through feeling really, really overwhelmed sometimes. And I look at my wife and I'm like, that's it. Let's go to sushi. I've had it. I don't want to cook. And I'm really happy to support our local sushi place here, Jimmy's. There's a lot of great ones in Billings, Nera and Jimmy's and great places here. And I'm happy to support. But the reason I'm doing it is because my breaker is blown and I can't deal with going through my fridge and trying to concoct one more meal out of, you know, the 3 chickpeas and the half frozen turkey breast I've got. And I'm just like, I can't do it, you know. And I'm not saying don't ever spend money. I'm saying that we collapse under the weight of the velocity at which we are being hit with fear right now. And we handle that in America in different ways. We spend money, we drive up the prices because we keep spending money. They keep raising the prices, we keep spending money, and then we blame the president. You know, we have far more, I don't even want to say liberal voters, but there are far more liberal. There's about half and half registered wise, but there's a ton of people who don't vote at all because they think the system is crap. And they're leaving it to these authoritarian weirdos. But if everybody could just understand that things are going to change politically dramatically in the next 4 years, and it has to do with everybody turning on their psychic gifts instead of trying to numb them out. And that's literally what happens. We try to numb ourselves, you know, with alcohol, with drugs, with kava, with buying sushi, although, you know, whatever. But I'm talking about just tertiary spending. That's like a panic spend because you need to drive your endorphins in your brain up. Spending money and acquiring new things, you guys, that drives endorphins up. That drives brain chemistry up. So here we are in the United States and, you know, we're looking at these crazy people spreading fear around. We as a collective are feeling that collective oppressive fear weight, I guess is the best way to put it. And you know, that is shutting people's spirit gifts down further, especially we empaths, because one of the things I talked about in my empath class was the more that we open up our chakras, the more information comes in. Except the power place for empaths is to have completely open chakras, not closed chakras. Yet what I'm looking at is this fear that for older people or people with more life under their belt who have developed more coping mechanisms with fear, some of these people collapse because their coping mechanisms are worn out. Psychically, they're getting hammered, so they just bury their heads and just say, I can't deal. Then there's other people who are like, okay, this is just one more hit on the battleship. I can take it. I don't want it. I don't like it, but I can take it. Then we have other people that are like, I'm not even leaving my house. I can't do it anymore. And you guys, this is all being driven by a minority of people on the planet. There's one Trump. There's one Putin. There's one Viktor Orban. There's one president of the Heritage Foundation. That's 4 people. And all the people falling in line with these folks' belief system and teaching are falling in line under the 4 people. That's 4 people. Now, I'm obviously not naming all the other world dictators out there, but those are the biggies. And Donald Trump has put himself into the position of being a dictator. He even said his own words in a rally. He said, my day one, I'm going to be a dictator. And everybody just cheered because that's what they want. And it's all fine and dandy until the spotlight of dictatorial rule decides that, yes, your lifestyle no longer fits in with their 1,000-page Heritage Project plan, and you get the boot. So you guys, I do I agree with some that this is a scary idea? Well, sure. Is it actually going to come to pass? Very likely not. It's only got about a 10% chance of passing through to become our United States mantra. But I'll tell you, that goes up to about 85% if everybody just stops trying and stays out of voting booths and just doesn't show up. I could, if all it took was 3 people to vote and nobody was voting and I got all 3 votes, boom, rule by Danielle. There we go. That wouldn't be bad, though. Honestly, that wouldn't be bad. We'd have a pretty good roll of things. I was thinking about, would you be president of the United States? And I would. I know it's a crap show, and you're guaranteed at least 50% of everybody in the country hates you automatically. And a big majority of the world thinks you're a loser, or you're this or you're that. You're never going to be able to solve all the problems. But I would take that job. What a puzzle. What a challenge, I'd do it. I don't think I'm ever going to have to worry about taking that job, but I'd do it. I would do it in a minute. Because what we're dealing with here is reminding people how magnificent we are. And, instead of just sitting here and just collapsing into fear about what could happen, whether you're afraid of Biden or you're afraid of Trump or whatever it is, you're afraid of trans people, you're afraid of Viktor Orban, whatever it is, stop being so afraid. Human beings have basic needs: food, air, water, air being at the top of the list, really. Shelter, kindness, love. Right now we have these ridiculous authoritarians that are waging wars all over the place. Oh my God, Gaza is a mess over there. Israel and Netanyahu. Netanyahu is stepping outside the box, doing all kinds of things that is compromising the United States' trust in Israel. The Israeli people are getting hammered by Hamas, which is backed by Russia. The whole thing is just a big fat mess. All of the Palestinians are being killed and displaced. It is a big, horrible stew that's connected to the rest of the globe. Ukraine is connected to the rest of the globe. What's going on in Gaza with Israel and Hamas is connected to the whole rest of the globe. And the big thing about the conflict over there with Hamas and Israel is that you got Putin, who's funding Hamas to try to get our sights off of Ukraine. You've got operatives that are being paid off by Russia in the American government that don't realize they're being paid by Russia. They think they're being paid by lobbyists that aren't Russia. It's kind of hilarious. In the very fringe area of the Republican Party that are stalemating out and saying, don't pay for Ukraine. There's some interesting things going on, and I understand why people could be fearful. Yet, if we could just focus on the fact that the ethers, the third dimensional ether that we operate in every single day, you guys, it is on the other end of collective consciousness. So acting like Israel and Hamas and Ukraine and Russia are the issue is the tail wagging the dog, okay? We are creating a collective environment here where all of this fear is ramping up. And we can use fear as a motivator. We can use fear to go, get people to sign up to vote or to work for what we really believe in democracy. We can use that. However, when we stay in fear, we create a fearful world to live in. And mostly we create it in our gray matter. We create it in that 3 pounds of gooey mush between our ears. We create it in our consciousness. And when we're creating a fear consciousness and we're living in that, you guys, and there's like hundreds of millions of us in the United States, and let's not even count the rest of the world, almost 8 billion people across the world. And a lot of these folks are, they're passing great fear consciousness around. They're part of the first world. They're watching the news. They're flipping out. We've got a lot of the third world that never watches the news and is just living their lives. And thank God they are, because that balance of just living their lives is taking care of this absolute generated hysteria that the media covers. For people, guys, the tail wagging the world of the dog, it's so crazy. And yes, of course, it's about the followers and the wars and all that. But if you think about it, and you understand spiritual physics, and you understand that the ethers affect our brain, okay? What's going on electromagnetically in the ethers affect your brain. That's why the Geneva Convention outlawed brain wave altering weapons. They are outlawed. And I gotta be straight out with you guys. I'm not so sure that we don't have some sort of frequency out there that's not altering people's noodles just a little bit. And I don't think I'd go as far as to say it's a secret brain control thing. I think it's just a harmonic created by all of the incredible broadcasts that we have through the air. It's really, really, really naive to say that our brains are not affected by the 40,000 some odd satellites that are trying to go up in orbit, by the zillions of 5G, 3G, 4G towers, by the just electrical wires hanging in cities. Did you guys know that there is a readable electrical charge that comes off of electrical wires and comes off of transformers? And back in the day when electricity was becoming popular, there was a lot of fear, and people thought that electricity was going to kill people. And it can if you lick a light socket, don't do that. But there was a lot of ignorance around electricity and what it was going to do. So I'm not trying to sound like that lady. I'm trying to sound like a person who understands wavelengths and brain wavelengths. And there are some wavelengths that don't affect the brain at all, and there's quite a few that do. And again, I'm not going to go as far as to say, I'm looking out there and seeing that, there's this brainwave augmenting machine that Russia has, or Trump has, or Viktor Orban has, or Hamas has. I'm not seeing that. But I do see great interruption in our hormones and brain chemistry that is created by disruptive frequency. And some of that frequency we are creating ourselves by creating the fear bomb in our head. We're creating the fear bomb. And when we continually broadcast fear out of the brain, and our brain is a broadcaster, you guys, that's what telepathy is. And telepathy is a thing. We can send impulses from the brain. Now, granted, we don't have a big power amp like, say, a radio tower would. Radio towers have these huge power amps, and they can throw 100,000 watts somewhere, or 200,000 watts, or whatever they're doing. Now, obviously, we don't have that kind of battery pack in our body, yet the brain can delicately throw signal out into the quantum field. And so even if it's a weak battery, it is still a transmitter. So imagine these millions of people reading all this garbage about these 4 people who are creating all this garbage. And that little bitty battery pack is broadcasting fear. Well, the collective picks it up. And I'm not saying, guys, I'm not saying stick your head in the sand and don't recognize that there's some wackos out there trying to do some really crazy crap that's really dysfunctional and harsh for people, and it's awful. And yes, there are people out there trying to do that. That's 100% true. But what is also true is there are far more of us that are like, yeah, dude, I'm not going for that, okay? I'm just not going to do that. I know doctors that if they made it mandatory, like abortion became illegal at a federal level, I know all kinds of doctors that would still do them to try to make sure that women had access to health care and weren't performing back alley abortions and dying. I know lots of doctors who would do that. Now, it's awfully hard to control 300 million people in the United States. You would have to have a military that fell in line behind a dictator. And it's really going to be hard to get all those service people to take up arms against their fellow Americans just because they're LGBTQ. That's just not going to be a thing. So, there's a lot in the United States that we are not properly groomed for to be turned into an authoritarian nation. We're just not. We have too many people that enjoy their freedoms here. And quite frankly, we have too many senators and too many white men in power that visit transgendered people in unsavory, sexual situations and work out their own sexuality issues, And so there's a lot that goes on here that we don't talk about. And one of the things I would tell you is just watch where your fear goes in your head. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to live on it. Now, every once in a while, guys, as a collective species, you're going to feel a wave of fear that comes up and just nails you. It just hits you. And it's going to feel hopeless and it's going to feel awful. And you're going to be wondering, what the hell? Where did this come from? I had one of those come up and just smack me right in the face a few days ago. I put a post out about on Facebook about it. And the reason I put the post out, you guys, is I want people to recognize that this happens to all of us. As human beings, all humans are empathic. There are empathic human beings who have on top of that the spiritual gift of empathy, which is a different empathic ability to decode very complex energies through the heart chakra, the pineal gland, the crown chakra, and find out some incredible psychic information or energetic information off of the emotional output. That's being an empath. And so if you're human, you're going to be subject to these waves of collective fear because they are massive right now. And it doesn't mean that you're not doing your job as a spiritual person who's trying to protect yourself. I'm so over the metaphysical exceptionalism out there. Where you have metaphysical teachers who are like, well, if you're succumbing to fear, you're doing something wrong. And your chakras aren't clean enough. And you know what? To all my metaphysical exceptionalists out there, get over yourselves. Man, human beings at this point in history are experiencing something that we've never experienced on this planet before. We have never had on this planet before nearly 8 billion of us. We have never before shared this yield of emotional energy through the ethers before, and we've never before had an internet where not only are we broadcasting with our heart chakras and our brains out into the ether sphere and sharing it with almost 8 billion other people, but we're also online sharing through words and pictures and thoughts every freak out that we're having. And of course, we're also sharing all the good stuff too, guys. But the podcast is about how to break the curse of collective fear, okay? And it's really not a curse. It's, well, kind of. It kind of is a curse because, I've had people call me up for over 20 years and offer me outrageous amounts of money to take curses off of them or their family. And I have to decline the outrageous amounts of money and inform them that curses are not real. We can will something into existence by believing it's true. We can draw energies into ourself that normally wouldn't be attracted to us because of the law of attraction, not because we're cursed. And if I keep believing I have a curse on me 24/7, guess I'm going to experience cursey things, So, of course, I declined. I had somebody offer me recently, fairly recently, I'd say maybe 4 months ago, $120,000 if I could break the curse of them dating people that were bad for them. Because they claimed that there was a generational curse on their family and that their mother had it and their grandma had it. And poor them, this person, they just could not date abusive alcoholic addicts of some kind. And it was a curse that made them do it. And I declined $120,000. And I said, well, I can help you understand why this is happening and it's not a curse. But the person wouldn't let go of the curse idea. They wouldn't let it go. They were like, no, this is a curse. You don't understand. It was put on my grandma. They immigrated from somewhere in Eastern Europe at the time. And this individual claimed that, I don't remember where they came from, their family. But this individual claimed that a medicine woman, or what they used to call, quote, gypsies, cast a spell on her great-great-grandma that she would never have happiness and she would always date these, abusive men that were alcoholics or drug addicts or whatever, that would womanize on them. And of course, she's falling right into this, and she's a younger woman, and she was saying, gosh, I've got this curse. Well, no, she doesn't have any curse. She just has been programmed to believe that this is what she should date, So we discussed it for quite a long time, but at the end of the reading, she was not prepared to let go of the curse because she said, no, the curse is real. And I said, well, it's real because you believe it's real. And she says, well, I'll give you $120,000 if you will convince me it isn't real. And I said, darling, I don't have that kind of power. I wish I could. I could sure as heck use $120,000, my God. But I literally had to tell her, I can't help you because I can't make you let go of this excuse that you have in your life to not get close to your partner. You're picking people who don't want to be with you. And you're doing it because it keeps you safe because you never have to give of yourself truly. And I can't make you love yourself that much. There's nothing I can do. And that poor thing, she started crying, and that was that. And I said, do you mind if I use this story if I never use your name? Can I use this story to explain to people consciousness? Because she was so tormented. And she said, absolutely. If you can save someone not believing what I believe, which is that I will never get out from underneath of this, then please do. Because she's in this hell that she can't get out of. So when we think about fear, yes, it's important to be afraid about things. It's important we're afraid about things because it draws our attention to areas where we find that our belief is a little thin in that area, or our acceptance is spot on. I accept that there's a Heritage Foundation. I accept that what their mission is, for me as a gay woman, is scary. It's weird. I don't even get it. The word is gay. Be happy. What is your problem with happy? God, I don't understand. And is it scary if I think about it? Well, yeah. Is it scary they wrote an almost 1,000-page Bible on how to oppress people in the United States of America? Yes. Is it creepy that they actually believe that old Trump is just going to get shoved right in and become president of the United States? I mean, the only way they could do that is to have the Supreme Court rule that all the election results that didn't vote for Trump didn't count. And they would need some sort of rule of law to do that. They can't just arbitrarily do that, because if they do that, gang, there goes America. And I'll tell you something. Those justices, except for two of them, there's two of them that are kind of a little delusional on their own power. But the rest of them are kind of aware of the fact that we're at a pretty perilous tilting point. And they're aware of the fact that they're public people. They're aware of the fact that people could find where they live. I mean, they're not, like I said, there's two of them that are really delusional on the court. And one of them is Clarence Thomas. He is in his own freaking universe when I look at that guy's brain. I mean, there is so much self-loathing in that man. Oh my God, so much self-loathing that he's just kind of disconnected and wrapped up in his identity as a justice. And so the bottom line, you guys, is that we've got so much power as a human race, especially in the United States, if we get out of this fear enablement. Allow yourself to feel fear, but move on. What are you going to do with that fear? What are you going to do to put calm and peace out into the ethers? What are you going to do to educate people about, say, this Project 2025 thing? I don't know. You may be a listener that's like, I think Project 2025 is rad. Let's oppress everybody except for 5 white men. Well, you go with your bad self. But for the rest of us that really appreciate the United States of America as a melting pot with all kinds of beliefs in it, as long as they do not oppress others, gosh, 2025, Project 2025 is kind of ridiculous. So how do we put this kindness into the world? Well, for some people, that means limiting their use of media. And I am all for people limiting media because media has gotten so histrionic and ridiculous. They're like, my God, I don't even know. Nikki Haley has a wiggle in her eyelash. I mean, it's just a little old, Chuck Schumer might have a twitch in his nostril. It's kind of silly. However, even if we are limiting our media usage, we're still part of the world. And we should still be doing something outside of our own bubble, if you will, to get out there and be able to just engage with, the world, you guys. Even if it's volunteering with our local church group or volunteering with the community group or volunteering with trails to build a better trail system, or maybe we're volunteering to help out with kids who need somebody to sit with them while their mom is working and they're just a few hours there that are just, within just a bandwidth of time to help out our community. We are not meant to hide. And I understand that there's a lot of people right now that just, want to just disconnect and live in their own world. And that's fine too. We all got to do what we got to do. But gang, I'm telling you, in America, we were fostered to give our power away to other people. And the baby boomer generation took that power back and said, heck no, we're going to change culture. We're going to do Roe versus Wade. We're going to get in there and have the Equal Rights Amendment. We're going to get in there and make sure women can, have a credit card. And they got out there and they applied themselves. And it changed the direction of the country. And there has been a group of people for the last 60, 70 years who have been butthurt about that ever since then. And that's what this almost 1,000-page Project 2025 is all about. It's about getting the world back before it got changed by these upstart hippies. But now this is the world in the United States. And so we've got to get out there and create the world that we want to see, gang. It is so important that we create the world that we want to see. And so if we can just get out there and do what it is that we believe we can do to affect change in a positive way and have our neural nets out there and our psychic abilities projecting hopefulness and enthusiasm. I mean, even if you're out gardening and letting your good vibes hit the dirt and hit the air, that's great. Yet I'm going to be the first one to tell you guys, in America, I'm going to say it again and again and again and again until it gets through our programmed little brains here in the United States of America. In America, we have been programmed to give away our power to bring change. And that's why the political system works the way it does. We just go la 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 and plug our ears up and wander off and go to the movies and say, well, it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. Do you know when my vote doesn't matter started? That came up in the 70s and 80s. It came up really in the 80s. And that was a disinformation campaign that came in from Russia initially. Your vote doesn't matter. Disempowering people. Well, I'm just one little person. My vote doesn't matter. And then it became this rallying cry for dropping out. My vote doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It became this weird disempowering cry. And now we have millions of people that believe that not casting a vote does not make a difference anywhere. Yet we're still living in a country that is dependent upon vote casts for many things. City councils, local elections, big elections. And the bigger issue of the disempowerment message that came through in the 70s and 80s of your vote doesn't matter, your vote doesn't matter, your vote doesn't matter, that came in around the time of Vietnam. And if you'll remember Vietnam era, we were supposedly in a non-war, which was ridiculous, fighting communism. And that communist outreach, there has always been this sort of West versus East thing in our modern world that has taken on more of a propagandist spin. And America has had its share of propaganda. Oh, the American dream, and we're the freest, most powerful country on the planet, and we have the best healthcare system. No, we don't. We have the most expensive healthcare system. It's not the best. And we go on and on and on with our American exceptionalism. But that my vote doesn't matter thing, guys, that was originally a Russian disinformation campaign that was brought in the late 70s to start to make people question the power they have. And granted, we got the Electoral College. We have all kinds of people noodling with the votes. Yes, I know the whole story. I study civics. Thank you. But guys, it still matters that we participate. Participation is being present. Participation is manifestation. And I understand there's all sorts of folks out there that don't believe in voting anymore, but please know that was originally a Russian disinformation propagandist campaign that took a long time to seed itself, and it's done pretty well. Now all we've got these people who are falling in line behind the Russian disinformation QAnon, which is really how that all got going. And we've got people who are believing Tucker Carlson, who is completely on Putin's payroll. This is the funniest thing, who goes over to Russia and says that he's been radicalized because he's standing in a Russian supermarket and everything's so inexpensive and there's tons of stuff on the shelves. And I got family from Ukraine, you guys, who are listening to this, and I remember stories about Russia. I have clients from Russia that when they hear him say this stuff, it makes them furious because they laugh and they're like, wow, that's Putin's state media right there. That is classic Putin media. And you guys, Putin isn't the bad guy. He's just an example of a consciousness that must have all the control. It's an authoritarian consciousness. It's a one rule consciousness. It's it's a special kind of crazy. And we've got a lot of it all throughout the world. So what I would tell you guys is that, yes, there's fear out there. Yes, we pass the fear on. I have focused a lot on how we pass fear around and what causes us fear. I've focused a lot on that on this podcast because the bottom line is we're going to experience these things. Yet we are this connected empathic species, and we are putting into the ethers more fear. We are creating the curse of fear. We've got to break the curse of fear. That's what this whole podcast is about. And understanding how we subconsciously pass it on, in the United States especially. And understanding how we have been literally programmed to give our power away. And now we believe that our vote doesn't matter. And now we believe this, and now we believe that. And oh God, oh goodness, someone owns the Supreme Court. Oh, look at my power I don't have. And we're just puking out fear into the ethers, which is affecting especially our younger generations, guys. They come in wide open, like big, wide radio antennas. And we're puking fear right into the mouths of those antennas right there. And these kids are like, what the hell? I'm only 17 years old. I don't really have a lot of coping mechanism for this amount of trauma. So how about if we try something super radical? We are going to try completely being responsible for our thought process. We are going to try being accountable for our fear arcs. And go ahead and feel them. Do your thing. Talk it over with your friends. Do what you got to do. But stop allowing your hippocampus to be triggered like it's under a jackhammer until you change your brain chemistry. And all you're doing is just broadcasting fear out to the ethers and poisoning the ethers. How about we try something radical called being accountable for our thoughts instead of the victim of the media? How about if we try something really, really outside the box called managing our emotional state instead of being an American reactive and then grabbing a Bud Light because that's what Bud, because probably those folks don't drink Bud Light anymore. But, we're taught to anesthetize instead of just being able to say, God, call your best friend, say this 1,000-page thing is nuts. Calm down. What do we do in our communities to make a 1,000-page manifesto that takes away freedoms for people? What are we doing in our communities to strengthen that message? Not Republican bad, Democrat good. Not that message. That's polarization and fear. How do we strengthen the fact that freedom is the best way to go? And how do we strengthen the fact that freedom for everybody is actually freedom? How do we educate? How do we try? Let's try something way outside the box, gang. Because I'll tell you something. We all know I turned 55. I went on and on and on about that in my last podcast. However, what you may not know is that, man alive, I am seeing so much fear paralysis at this point in my career and at this point in my life. I can't even believe it. I can't believe the amount of people giving up. And it's because nobody's standing up and just saying, will you snap the hell out of it? We're good. Let us put love in the ethers. Let us put hopefulness. Let us work towards a grand country and grand world by working together. Let us re-educate people on what their brains do to the ethers. I'm not trying to shame anybody for being afraid. I am just making us aware that it has become a standard with a lot of people. And that's a brain patterning issue, and it's a trauma issue, guys. And I'm not a therapist. I would suggest you seek a great therapist. If you are living a lifestyle of fear at this point, I kind of get it. Yet it's only hurting you, and it's hurting the ethers. And who knows who we're dumping our stuff on this way. This is the reality of it. This is the reality I get to look at in the ethers. We can do better, guys. We got this. I know deep in your heart you got this. I know you do. And it doesn't mean I'm ignoring Viktor Orban and wacko Trump and wacko Heritage Foundation. They're real. I'm looking right at them here. Yet I'm looking at the disempowered people falling in line behind them. And why don't we empower people to bring the best they've got forward? And to stop just sitting down and going, oh, I don't count. There is a particular self-absorption. I have to say this. There's an energy of self-absorption. And kind of, I would say, a underbelly pancake-sided narcissism too. Oh, it doesn't matter because it doesn't have to do with me. Me. Come on, you guys. We can do better than that. We can do better than that. Be afraid. Don't be paralyzed by fear. View it as a passing storm front. Get out there and let everybody know with your empathic self. Pour love into the ethers. Pour love into your environment. Break the mold of this weird authoritarian thing that's trying to convince everybody they can't do it. Realizing you are a psychic superhero. Realizing that you can put so much good into the ethers. Go get her done. All right, then. I'll see you next podcast.